Today, we are pulling back the curtain on something that runs our lives way more than we realize. We're talking about that hidden force behind our desires, our habits, and why a simple pleasure can turn into something, well, something that feels a lot like a trap.
I mean, you've probably felt this, right? It's that moment you realize you're just endlessly scrolling through a social feed, but you're not even enjoying it anymore. Or maybe you're reaching for that third cookie, knowing darn well the first one was the only one that actually tasted amazing. It doesn't quite make sense, and that's the paradox we're going to get into today.
To really get this, we're not going to start with a bunch of heavy brain chemistry. Nope, we're going to start with a story. A story that might sound really familiar. It always starts so small, doesn't it? A little buzz from your phone, that first sip of a perfect coffee, the satisfying click of buying something online. It's just this tiny spark, a little blip in an otherwise totally normal day.
And that first time? Wow. It's just pure, genuine delight. It actually feels good. It gives you that little escape, that little reward you were looking for. There's no catch, no downside, just a simple, clean hit of happiness.
But then, things start to change. Doing it once becomes doing it every day. It weaves itself into your routine. It becomes a habit. And right around then, you notice something's off. The actual joy, the liking of it, starts to fade. But a new feeling is taking its place. A powerful, nagging urge. The wanting starts to get a whole lot stronger than the liking.
And this quote, man, it just perfectly sums up where this journey ends. You're not trying to get a good feeling anymore. You're just trying to escape the bad feeling of not doing the thing. It's a huge shift, right? You've gone from chasing joy to just running away from the anxiety of the craving. Okay, so what is actually going on inside our heads to build this trap? Because this isn't about having weak willpower. Not at all. This is about a feature of our biology getting expertly hijacked. So let's dive into the science.
All right, here is the single biggest misconception we've got to clear up. We've all heard dopamine called the pleasure molecule. Well, turns out that's not really right. A better way to think of dopamine is as the motivation molecule. It's the chemical in your brain that basically screams, hey, pay attention, that was awesome, go get more of that. It's all about wanting, about seeking, not about the pleasure itself.
This whole process runs on a super simple but crazy powerful loop. First, you get a trigger. Let's say your phone dings. Step 2, your brain releases dopamine before you even do anything. That dopamine creates step 3, the motivation, that itch, that urge to check your phone. And finally, step 4, you act on it, you get your reward, and that just tells your brain, see, let's do that again.
So you see there are two totally separate things happening here. Liking something, that's the actual pleasure you feel in the moment. That's your brain's opioid system saying, ah, this is nice. But wanting, that's all dopamine. That's the craving, the drive, the I gotta get that feeling. Even if that isn't all that great anymore, they are not the same thing.
And this system can be set off by pretty much anything. I mean, sure, the obvious ones are on the list, like nicotine or alcohol. But so are things we deal with every single day. Sugary foods, the dings from social media, the thrill of online shopping. They all tap into the exact same ancient wiring in our brains.
So this is where things start to get really tricky. If dopamine is just doing its job, why does the whole thing start to feel so bad? Why does it seem like all the pleasure just drains out of it over time? Well, think about it like this. The first time you get a big reward, the pleasure you feel is massive. But our brains are smart. They adapt. They basically say, whoa, that was a lot, and they turn down the volume to handle it. So the 10th time you do it, the pleasure is less. By the 100th time, you're barely feeling any of that original magic. But that dopamine-fueled wanting? Oh, that can be stronger than ever.
And boom, that's the trap, right there. You're not even chasing a high anymore. You're just doing the thing to feel, well, to feel normal, to get back to your baseline. When you don't have the reward, you're in a deficit, and that intense craving is just your brain trying to climb back to zero.
Okay, I know this can all sound a little bit bleak, but here's the good news. Just understanding how this machine works is the first huge step toward changing your relationship with it. This isn't about fighting your own biology. It's about learning to work with it.
So, what can you actually do? It really all starts with just being aware. What are your triggers? Can you try taking a deliberate break from some of them? You might have heard this called a dopamine fast, just to give your system a chance to reset. What about finding rewards that take a little effort, like finishing a workout or learning a new skill? Those tend to give you a much more stable kind of satisfaction. And maybe most importantly, Can you just notice the feeling of wanting and just sit with it for a second without immediately having to act?
You know, the big takeaway here is that dopamine is not the enemy. It's the engine of all human motivation. It's why we achieve things, why we explore, why we connect with people. The real challenge isn't to kill it off, it's to stop letting all these cheap, easy rewards hijack the system. It's about learning to point all that amazing motivation toward things that genuinely make our lives better.
And that kind of leaves us with one last big idea to chew on. The truth is, we're all running on loops. That's just how we're built. So instead of feeling trapped in loops that give us less and less joy, what if we could consciously, deliberately build new loops? Loops around learning, creating, helping others, connecting. Now that is where the real power of understanding this system lies.